How's everyone doing today? We got a lot to talk about today, and this is my first episode of just talking about sports. I don't really have a name to it. I'm sure I'll think of something. Good morning football or sports or whatever. I'll talk about basketball. I'll talk about anything that comes to mind. I got plenty of notes today, and today we're going to start off with college football. College football has been insanity this year, and I cannot express how happy this makes me to see Iowa and Cincinnati both hold the number 2 spot over, say, Clemson or an Alabama, and trying to decide between the two who's going to be the best. And Alabama losing to A&M, which I was at that game, didn't rush the field, but that was such a great game. And the first thing I want to talk about is this week's matchup against Michigan versus Michigan State. And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here. Trust me, I'm not going to sit here and try to explain to you why this is a big game. Everyone knows this is a huge game for both programs. You have an up-and-coming head coach in Mel Tucker and John Harbaugh, who's trying to redefine his legacy over 2 snaps that could have drastically changed everything for him. Specifically against Michigan State, him being 3-3, and I think a lot of people do understand the magnitude of this situation. They understand how big this game is, more than the rankings, more than anything. This is 2 programs that are at turning points right now. One could turn to an elite status. The other one could lose their up-and-coming head coach to an LSU, a USC. But here's where I become a Debbie Downer, and I hate to do this. I don't want to do this, but recent history would tell me otherwise. I don't think this game's going to be as important as people want it to be. I think Ohio State beats both of them, and in the perspective of the playoff, I definitely think this game doesn't have as much of an importance as people want it to be. And I say that because, and this will turn more into an Ohio State segment, but I think C.J. Stroud and those wide receivers, they could beat Michigan State. And who has had John Harbaugh's number every year that he's been there? It's been Ohio State. I don't think there's anything truly that he's made different that would compete with the offense of Ohio State. They are a track meet every time they play, and the only time that you've really seen Ohio State not play well is when you've been able to bring them down. And unless Ohio State has a rough time offensively, or in their offensive line play, and you see the defensive line for Michigan get a hot start, I could see it. But at the same time, recency would tell me that this game is not going to be as important as people want it to be. This is not going to be 2 teams fighting for a playoff spot. This could be 2 teams that end up fighting for second place to Ohio State, and they will both end up just being more chess pieces to get Ohio State in the playoff as a number 4 seed over Cincinnati, which I expect the committee to do. I think the committee is either going to put Cincinnati into the 4th spot to go against Georgia as a sacrificial lamb. And I know that's kind of a dark way to look at it, but the most of this committee is an elitist, conference-based group. And they will use probably Cincinnati as the piece to give an explanation on to why they want to expand. Because if you expand the playoff, you get more money. I know I'm going off on a tangent here. And this started off with Michigan State. This is just getting my opinion out on why this game could be a catalyst for different reasons. If you're a Michigan State fan, this game's going to be awesome. If you want to go watch them play 17-13, which I could predict is the final score, it's going to be a good game. It's going to be a slaughter defensively. I expect probably tons of injuries. I don't want injuries, but both these teams are physical. Kenneth Walker is one of the most entertaining running backs I've seen in the past 3 years, and it could be huge because I think if both of these teams play well and Ohio State beats them both, it gives them enough chess pieces to overcome the Oregon loss. And I don't see Oregon making the playoff. And if they do, that situation I must save for a later date. But to finish where I'm going at, watch this game for sure and really live in the moment and try to reflect on what this game meant at the time that it was played versus what the committee goes into consider, because the committee is going to go for the bigger brand. And if Ohio State beats these two teams, now if Ohio State loses, let's live in that. If Ohio State loses to one of these two teams, and I will not be able to watch this game, sadly, because of my anniversary, and I will probably try to record it and watch it on Sunday in the coming week before the next week of games, and really try to dissect, is either of these teams playoff teams. They're both undefeated, and both probably expected to not end the year undefeated. I mean, obviously this week one of them goes down, and then the other one will probably lose to Ohio State. And then the scenario comes if one of them beats Ohio State and wins this game. Things get really interesting, and I think they would become a playoff team, obviously. But where do you select them? And I think they would jump up to probably 3 in the nation. And now we have Ohio State still there, Oklahoma, who I don't think they have played to deserve a playoff spot. I don't think Oklahoma, after that Kansas game, I won't go on a tangent for that Kansas game, but they do not deserve a playoff spot right now. And this game could be, I think it will be the game of the week, right behind Auburn Ole Miss, which I'm going to get into the SEC in the next segment. But to keep this clip relatively short, not to dive into anything else, but personally I do see this this being a big time game for playoff implications, potentially playoff expansion. I know that's looking far ahead, and I think for Cincinnati they need to watch this game, because whoever comes on top, be the biggest fan of, say, Michigan wins. Cincinnati, I want you to be the biggest Michigan fans, because that means you want Ohio State to lose. Because I could see the committee putting Ohio State, a one-loss Ohio State team, over an undefeated Cincy team. Genuinely. If Ohio State wins out, they will say that the resume for Ohio State in a Big Ten championship over a conference championship for Cincinnati, they will put Ohio State in. I think that a bigger brand of football or a bigger challenge for Georgia, I honestly want Cincinnati to be a 3 seed. I know they're number 2 right now, but I want them to be the 3 seed, because I don't want them to be the go try and beat Georgia. Go get your rematch of last year. Go try again. I want them to try to, I feel like a better game would be them versus the 2nd seed or the 3rd seed, just flip-flop between the two. But yeah, that's how I feel. To get into the next segment, what I'm going to be talking about next is the SEC West, and what I think of the SEC West. The SEC West is about to be a buzzsaw. I genuinely believe that. I don't think what's being talked about enough is the next couple weeks, the matchups that are about to happen that could change drastically in the standings of the SEC West, and who could get in the New Year's Six Bowl, who could get to the Sugar Bowl, Cotton Bowl, things like that of nature. I don't know what the playoff bowls are this year, so if I just name the 2 playoff games, I apologize, but like a New Year's Six Bowl. You have this week, you have Ole Miss versus Auburn. I apologize. And Bo Nix versus Matt Corral. My, oh my. One NFL quarterback with the other one not seen as an NFL quarterback, but Bo Nix's career is so weird to try to process. And he's a good quarterback at times. He's a great quarterback at times. He's Johnny Manziel 2.0, and other times he throws the interception. There's no in between of Bo Nix. There's not a average game for Bo Nix. He is either bad or he is great. And this week he needs to be great. I think honestly that Ole Miss game versus Tennessee is muddled by the trash, and if you threw trash on the field, you're a terrible human being. There's no way around it. I'm making that statement now. But Tennessee showed some cracks, and Tennessee's not a bad team either. I mean, you saw they played with Bama, which is usually what they don't do. And Ole Miss is a beatable team, but you have to be able to keep up and be able to hit them in the mouth. And if you're not able to keep up with them, they will destroy you in a track meet. And you really don't want to get in a track meet with them because we've seen what they did with Arkansas. Arkansas was a physical team, and they went head to head for, I think it was like 56 or something. And Arkansas had to go for a 2-point conversion just because they didn't want to play them in overtime and have to stop them on offense. And that's just one matchup. We're looking at the matchup this week. Next week, things get interesting. A&M, who beat Alabama, one of the best games of the year, they're coming off a bye playing Auburn the very next week. Auburn's in a tough slate of games. So does A&M, because A&M the week after that has to go play Ole Miss. Ole Miss, Auburn, and Texas A&M are all going to be fighting for that second spot. And things get really interesting if Auburn beats Alabama. And in the Iron Bowl, I know that tends to be a bold take or something that people don't really expect. But, I mean, it's the Iron Bowl. There's years where I don't think Auburn has a chance, and they play a 3-point game. There's multiple times where Auburn is out of it, and if Bo Nix plays the game out of his life, and Alabama doesn't really figure out some of the problems they're having defensively, if they catch them off guard, I don't know who's playing when, but things get really interesting on who plays Georgia in the SEC championship, because Alabama has already lost early in the year. If, say, A&M wins out, right, they would have to beat Ole Miss and Auburn would hold the tiebreaker over Alabama, but A&M would hold the tiebreaker and have less wins. They have 2. Ole Miss has 1 against Alabama, right? And they are right now 1 and 2 in the SEC West. Ole Miss obviously has already lost their opportunity against Alabama, and if Ole Miss wins out and Auburn beats Alabama, then they go to the SEC championship, and potentially with a 1 loss, they would be a playoff contender. There's no doubt in my mind they wouldn't be a playoff contender. They would have to probably win these next couple of games very assertively and not in a close game. Auburn, I don't see getting into the playoff. Well, actually, if they beat Ole Miss, not in the playoff, but in the SEC championship, they would have a lot of things have to go their way, and they would have to hit a hot streak, probably unheard of. But looking from the perspective of just getting the second spot, because getting the second spot in the SEC West is known to be you've had a good year. You've had a solid year, because it's usually Alabama 1 and then the second contender, or the guy that was trying to beat Bama or couldn't beat Bama that year but had a really solid year against everyone else, is that second spot. And then after this week, you have, obviously I mentioned A&M Auburn, which A&M will be coming off a bye, and that will be a really good game next week. You also have Ole Miss playing Liberty, and you might ask, well, Tegan, why are you talking about Ole Miss and Liberty? Liberty, Malik Willis, if you don't know that name, write it down. And if your team in the NFL doesn't have a quarterback, write this guy's name down now. His film, when I took a little bit of a dive into his film, he's a Madden quarterback. He's very raw. I don't think he has the pieces around him. Get that man a good quarterback coach. Lions, go hire the best quarterback coach you can find and get him to back up behind Jared Goff and not learn Jared Goff's tendencies. But you already have a bridge quarterback. I implore that someone take a chance on Malik Willis and give him the support he needs, because he has raw talent written all over him, and he could flame out. If you give him no support and you throw him on the field, he's not going to turn out well. But if you give him time, he could blossom. And I think Ole Miss will win this game. 2 NFL quarterbacks going head-to-head. But if you have an NFL quarterback on the opposing team, I still think they have a chance, and Liberty could make it a trap game very easily. And the very next week, you have A&M versus Ole Miss, and I'll do a deeper dive when that game comes up. And I think that's at Ole Miss. A&M, very different style game versus Ole Miss, and two very different teams that are both trying to prove themselves as programs, and amidst a lot of controversy around specifically A&M and Ole Miss trying to get Arch Manning, and there's a lot going on with these programs and the Jimbo rumors, which I'm about to address here in a couple minutes. We are looking at a juggernaut. This is where people make the jokes or talk about how the SEC is always beating each other up, and it's a bloodbath. And I honestly have never seen it be like this before, and it's a crazy amount of talent on both sides of the ball. I'm really expecting all these games to turn out really interesting. I think if you were to ask for my predictions, I think Auburn will be the one to flame out potentially, and I could see A&M potentially losing to Ole Miss or Auburn in a trap game. They tend to both play each other really solid, and this college football year is going to get really interesting towards the end. But to get into the next topic, we'll talk about Jimbo Fisher. He's not going anywhere. As someone that is a more of an advocate and not trying to push A&M down in many situations, and I think A&M is on the come up very much and could be a very dangerous elite team. Jimbo's not going anywhere. If you genuinely think Jimbo is going to go somewhere and you think a blank check can change anything, and I do believe this, and if I'm called for a fool, then so be it. I will take that on the chin and I'll admit that I'm wrong, but take it away from the press conference, and I can look at that and take his word, and I do believe what he's saying in a happy wife, happy life. If you saw his wife tweeted out saying that she was happy living here in College Station, I look to compare the situations when he left for Florida State versus A&M, right? And I understand the LSU connection, and Ross Bajork, the athletic director, I might have gotten him mixed up, but he lured Jimbo from Florida State. Who says he can't lure him from A&M, his previous job? The difference is Florida State was becoming an increasingly toxic program, and some of that can be at fault for Jimbo. I don't know the full story of that, but it was very obvious that program was starting to deteriorate. Let alone we add on top of that, A&M has what feels like unlimited money to throw at this football program, whereas LSU is dealing with some financial problems, and I'm not even sure they really have as much of a blank check as people are trying to say, as much as the USC would. And why, with Jimbo and his recruiting momentum and the fact that they are close to getting 3 to 4 top 15 players in this next recruiting class, and all this money put into the program, and I genuinely feel like he has no reason to leave. Now the national media may sit here and tell you, well, I mean, it's A&M, it's a little brother, it's this guy. What are we talking about? It's Jimbo Fisher to LSU. He's coached there. Come on, why would he stay at little old A&M? We can look at the Alabama game all we want, but the truth is he is a coach building something big, and I understand this was the year that people really expected him to make that step into the national title contention, and there's not a lot of excuses for the Mississippi State game and the Arkansas game, but I think it was very obvious through these past couple weeks that there's been changes made to the play calling and how this team is, and they're building behind Zach Calzada, and they're one of the most intriguing teams, and their run game, and there's a lot of positives that aren't being talked about enough on why he would stay. And I think there's more intriguing options for LSU, and I think they are most likely to pursue these than Jimbo. I think Jimbo is going to get a call, and he's going to say, man, listen, I like it here. And if I'm taken for a fool, then I will have enemy number one in Louisiana State University, as I already am not a big fan of any fan from LSU, but that's no hate on LSU as a school. It's just more of their fan base. No. But that'll wrap up my college football preview for this week, or some topics I really wanted to talk about. I'll think of something to call it. It'll just probably be college football week 8, or I think we're in week 8 or something like that. And yeah, that'll be it for college football week something. If you like the video and you want to keep watching, I'll be posting a NFL video and an NBA video, and probably a long version mashing all three. I'm going to try to make as many videos as I can. I'm still learning all this. This is what I love to do, and I would love some support.